been far away. What have you got to say? My heart is on display, but I'm not afraid. Yeah, I'm not afraid. Why you been getting busy? I've been getting dizzy, trying not to keep you in mind. Now all the dirty thighs and suddenly enticing since you came back in my life. I've been waiting for you, been waiting for you, been waiting for you. I've been waiting for you, been waiting for you, been waiting for you. Do what you gotta do, yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do. I've been waiting for you, been waiting for you, been waiting for you. You left without a line. Was it by design? If what you want is time, don't go wasting mine. Don't be wasting mine. Well, it's starting to get old. I'm not trying to be cold. I just think it's time that you see that I can't wait forever. Guess it's now or never, but for you to get with me. I've been waiting for you, been waiting for you, been waiting for you. I've been waiting for you, been waiting for you, been waiting for you. Do what you gotta do, yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do. I've been waiting for you, been waiting for you, been waiting for you. I've been waiting for you, been waiting for you, been waiting for you. I've been waiting for you, been waiting for you, been waiting for you.
Who has no house now, he will never build. Whoever is alone now, long will so remain. Will stay awake and read and write long letters, and wander the alleys up and down restless as the leaves are drifting. wander the alleys up and down, restless as the leaves are drift. The leaves are drift.
Hello again everyone. This week's sponsor is Don Carlson, creator of Puppet Putty. Puppet Putty comes in many colors and is formulated just for stop-motion animators. Find out more at www.stopmotionstore.com. All sales go towards keeping our weekly live shows, as well as animateclay.com free for everyone. Now back to our host, Mark Spess.
Everybody, hopefully you can hear me. It's Mark, and let me get rid of this screen and put on our camera. There we go. Okay, so let's see, where are we? Let me put this over here. Okay, so I can see the chat. All right, so last time we were working on some replacement faces, and again we have more faces to make. Of course, this is for our live show. And also for our short film, so we can see some of the faces we have here. Lots of replacements already, and so we have some of the little kids. We had the mother character. Here's another one, and they don't have eyebrows. We're gonna put the eyebrows on during animation, so it looks a little strange, but we're making a lot of progress. And today what I want to do is I want to work on this face right here. Move some stuff around. So we need a new expression for this one. Now we've got a lot of faces to actually work on. I didn't cast any more yellow heads in the left and right positions like this one, but I do want to make a frontal face that's different than the ones that I've already got. And so I want kind of a I don't know what the expression name would be. Maybe a kind of, I don't know, maybe, is it annoyed? Well, anyway, let's, welcome to the show, Ethan. So Greg is asking, do you think Laika's next film will be stop motion after the box office failure of Kubo? A great film, mind you. I fear the studio may attempt to correct this by branching out to Shudder CGI films. Well, there's been some rumors, but they're just rumors, I guess, that they're I know that Travis Knight wants to do like some live action work, and I know that they were gearing up for a live action film, but they're also gearing up for stop motion from what I heard as well. So I don't really know. I mean, anything is possible. I mean, they're really known for stop motion, so I hope they don't change, but you know, they're more in line with whatever makes the most money. So let me see. I want to adjust my camera here because it seems like it's really far away. Where is? There we go. Let's see if I can adjust this a bit. Oh, it's gotta be a way to do it. How do I zoom in? And where did it go? There we are. There we are. Okay. Let me zoom in so everybody can see what I'm working on. It seems really far. There we go. And autofocus is on, which is good. Okay, I think that's probably better though. I'm gonna keep my settings opened. Okay. Yeah, I don't really know what's gonna happen at Laika. I mean, they are kind of, I mean, they originally, Will Vinton Studios, what they did was they worked on television ads as their main source of revenue. And they also, of course, ventured into some feature film work, but you know, they didn't really get into feature films as much as, I mean, let me think here. What was the last one they tried to do? It was The Frog Prince, which didn't work out. They had put a lot of money into it, and they had, I think, Barry Manilow and some other musicians, you know, big name musicians working on that with them to do the, you know, the soundtrack and all that. I think they were trying to emulate the Disney films where they do all the singing and dancing, and that's kind of like I remember Will Vinton at one time. I think he was saying that he wanted to compete with Disney. So that was something that I think he was trying to play around with. The musical style of stop motion features versus what they did with Mark Twain, which is more serious. Like the film Mark Twain was more for adults, it seems, than for kids, even though it had a good message to it in some ways. But once Travis Knight got in there and his dad invested in the studio, they were thinking, well, what's going to make the most amount of money? What should we put all of our effort into? And they went with features. So you didn't really see a lot of the ads and things. Trying to think, what is the studio that branched off of there with like David Daniels? Man, I can't remember the name of it, but some of the people that worked there did branch off and get into the commercial industry, making TV ads and everything. Like Webster Colcord was one of the people that I worked with, and he even got into that. And so it kind of became a fractured industry in some respects. Some people decided to compete for jobs in stop motion. And of course you have Cup of Coffee Animation in Canada, and a lot of these studios you can't really compete with because of the tax codes in each of the countries. Some of them give you incentives and subsidize work that's done in the industry. So there's a lot involved in the business of stop motion. And if they just figure out that they're not making money with stop motion, I think it would be really difficult to transition to live action. CG is a definite possibility, but they've already done CG before. Like Will Vinton actually was the first person to bring CG to that particular studio. He did like the yellow and red M&M characters in CG, which were really successful. The television ads were really popular, and yep, that was all CG. So it's not like they're really strangers to that, but in terms of feature films and CG, I don't know. I think their stop motion is pretty unique. I think if they did that, it might be a mistake. Yeah, thanks. You like to squash and stretch of these faces here? Yeah, these will be all replaced, and hopefully we'll give them a little bit of a lively motion, I guess. Hey, yo, Whiskey, welcome back. And Wes Anderson's upcoming Dog Island, I'm not sure. Wes also was working on another Fox movie, which is going to be stop motion. I'm not sure if they're actually working on that anymore, or I don't know. A lot of these people work on films, and then they get drop out of them. Where is my other tool at here? Where are you, tool? Let's see. Well, I can probably use this one. No, I don't want to use that tool. Isle of Dogs. Yeah. A lot of people make promises. There's also that Pinocchio film from Guillermo del Toro or whatever, and that seems really awesome. I love the previews that they came out with, like the character designs, and they did a few actual models of the designs, which would be really cool if they turned them into stop motion puppets. But they were just like static posed creations, and I never did anything with those. and they kind of promise to do that stuff, but then they get sidetracked with other projects. I mean, that's kind of how creative people, like, I mean, I know for myself and for many people, when you start working on a film, like this particular film, you know, you get tons of other ideas during the creation of your film, and you're like, oh, I want to make this, I want to make that. And, you know, I'm guilty of it too. And you kind of get sidetracked, and you're like, this would be fun to make. So I think most of the authors and story writers that are, you know, popularizing modern culture, it's really hard for them to stay on track and stick to a project that's done in stop motion, because it takes a long time and takes a lot of dedication. You have to kind of give up 4 years of your life and just every day work at it, you know, and to do that is a lot to ask. I think a lot of people like Wes Anderson would probably, I mean, I know he gets really involved, like he got really involved in his last stop motion feature, but I'm sure they would be like, I would just love to hand it over to somebody else, write it, and then you create it, kind of a thing. That would be ideal for them. But then again, you don't want to give up all the creative control of somebody else. You want to make sure that your vision is told, so you kind of gotta be involved in it. So, you know, time will tell. A lot of people say they're going to do stuff and it just falls to the wayside. Like when I went to Will Vinton's in the 90s and I saw the Frog Prince stuff being worked on, I thought it was the most amazing character designs and ideas, and just, it seemed like when you saw the characters, they looked alive, you know, when you saw them and without, you know, seeing them on a two-dimensional screen. It makes a big difference when you see a stop motion puppet in front of you. It's hard to describe, you know. You're seeing it in 3D, you can walk around it, you can touch it and move it around, and I don't know. But it's a letdown when those films don't ever they don't follow through with those films. Yeah, Fantastic Fox #2, yep. And so Greg is saying, hey, Marvel Portal Productions. Yeah, I don't know what Henry Selick is even up to right now, Beard. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure, though, he's got ideas that he'd like to create also. I mean, when you're creative, it's like you just... Sometimes it's hard not to create. Like, if I didn't have an outlet for my creativity, I really think I'd go crazy. I mean, an office job, 9 to 5, would probably drive me crazy. I couldn't do it. Alright, so I want to paint these eyes here. Well, you know, I should probably put the lips on first. Let me find my red clay. I think this was the color. Nope, that's not it. So I'm trying to figure out which one of these was the color again. And I believe it's this one, yep. So I need to add some little lips on this. Take a little piece of clay. Just be a little bit bigger. Now I gotta throw that piece away. Let's get another one. Yep. If Calvin and Hobbes, so Greg is saying if there was ever a Calvin and Hobbes film, you'd like it to be made by or directed by Henry Selick. That'd be cool. That is you know, there's never been a Calvin and Hobbes film. I wonder why. Doesn't that seem like that would be an automatic success if you had, you know, made a stop motion film of that? I would think so. Let's see something here. Just a little bit too big. I take some clay off and redo this. Hey, Hoserloo and Gurkology, welcome back. So we're going to add this upper lip. Make sure it's shaped properly. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of putting it up against the other lips on my other faces to make sure it's the right size and everything. You know what? This color seems off though. Where's my red color for lips? Maybe I had the right or the proper color before. Let's see here. No. Oops. Bumped my desk. Yeah. Calvin and Hobbes is a really, like, there's a lot of depth to it, isn't there? Here we go. That's the red color. So I've got all these 3 different colors. Wasn't sure which one it was, but it's this one. I think what I'll do on this is I'm gonna scribe on here lips. This way I know next time. L-I-P-S. That's an easy way to remember. Is the I think the creator of Calvin and Hobbes is still alive, isn't he? I mean, I hate to presume that he's gone, but I know that he stopped making those comics. I wonder what he's actually doing. I gave my son a Calvin and Hobbes book that I had when I was a kid, and he actually really likes it. But I mean, he's not like a huge fan or anything, but I thought it was kind of a nice thing to kind of pass the torch off to him. You know, see if he likes it as much as I do. Let's see. I gotta get this right. I gotta get this lower lip on just the right way, or otherwise could look strange. There we go. I think that's pretty good. So we have our regular smile and a kind of like, huh? A perplexed look. Maybe that's the word I was looking for, perplexed. Alright. So I'm going to take some of my acrylic paint. And where is my... There's my CD that I always put... Oh, I can use this. Use a little piece of poster board. Open up. One drop. So I've got a little eggshell with some alcohol, and I'm just gonna wet my brush and then take a little bit on here, thin it slightly, and paint it in there. So let's get these eyes painted. There was somebody in our forums, they were asking about transitioning the color of a character from, I think, blue to beige. It was either beige to blue or blue to beige. and someone, one of the people in there, who was it? I forget the name now, but he said you can use lighting to use, for example, have your character be beige and then use blue lighting and maybe use like a barn door or something in order to, there we go, change from one color to the next, which I thought was pretty clever. And then I also said that you could also paint the character and have a replacement. Like, for example, if you're going to have this character, this face turn from yellow, let's say, to orange, you could use acrylic paints in the same way, and paint it, starting from this side and work your way over and take individual frames. And the transition can be done with paint, and then when you're all the way to the end, you could use the same color clay as you've painted with. But that's a really tough thing to do. Like, I was trying to think how people have done that in the past, and I couldn't think of any sort of previous animation that I've seen where they did that. I know Gumby probably was done that way, where they would like slice up stuff and into pieces, but I couldn't think of any particular shots. Okay, so I think that's dry. So there she is. There's a new replacement face. Alright. Next up, got a couple of these little kid faces. They're really small. And what I need to do is I need to replicate at least two of them. I think those two would be good. And they will be facing from right or left to right as opposed to right to left. So that's going to be my challenge now. And these are really super, super small. I mean, here's my pinky. You can sort of see what we're talking about. We've got these little eyebrows, which are clay. And I'll have to use some of this black clay. As you can see, these dwarf even a small piece of clay. So first I need to kind of clean these up, because this one's got, when I poured it in the mold was cold, so maybe you guys can see it's like there's little lines on his head, just need to be cleaned up. You can see in the shadow here like that, almost like veins or something. So let's see. Okay, so the author is still alive. That's good. And he's become somewhat of a hermit. Okay. So he wrote an article back in about 2014. Okay. And Janet says, Mark, what do you think about artists who everything do say only for money, not for art? Well, that's the thing. If you're an artist and you need to survive, sometimes you have to do art for money. Like I do art for money. Oops. I must have had some red clay on the end of this. Let me wipe that off. Where's my paper towel? Just kind of clean my tool off here. I mean, you have to do art for money if you want to be an artist and do it all the time. Like, unless you want to be doing something else and then do art, money can be good and it can be bad. If a person's a good person, they'll use it for good. If they're bad, they'll use it for bad. There's nothing really wrong with money. Money's kind of a neutral thing. It's not either or. You can use money to buy a gun and kill people, or you can use money to help somebody that needs to eat or something. So I don't see money as really bad. A lot of artists do work for money. It's just part of it's part of how things are in the world. So Greg is saying, have you ever dabbled in traditional 2D animation? You seem like you might have. I mean, this is kind of like 2D. It's kind of like 3D. It's really similar. The only 2D I did when I was back in Gentleman Films was I tried to do some cell animation, but it was just for fun. I was working with a cell animator, and what we were doing at that time was working with cell animators because we were creating sets that were 3D and photographed and then put into a computer, and the 2D animators would interact with the 3D sets. So, for example, I had to make like a little industrial sander in a garage, and then still pictures were taken of it, and then one of the 2D characters called Gator walked over to it and like flipped on a switch, and it turns on. But when it turns on, the 2D animators would animate these like little swoosh lines, like it's spinning around and everything. And then they like threw a can or something at it, and then it flies into the sander and bounces off and flies around. And in one scene, we had to create a garage door, and one of the characters gets scared and runs through the garage door. So like the 2D animators would draw like a silhouette of the character that had smashed through the door, and we translated that by putting that 2D drawing over the actual three-dimensional physical door and cut out the outline, really as precisely as we could. And so in that regard, I worked with 2D animators and I learned a lot. One of my first books was The Illusion of Life, the really great book to have, from Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston, two of the 9 old men from Disney. And that was considered the animation Bible before a lot of books came out in, I guess, maybe the late 90s, early 2000s. That's when everybody was writing books, Alright, so let's focus on what we're doing here. So I need to create this expression, which is actually pretty easy. Let's see what time, I got about a half hour left. So this one here, I want to replicate, and so I need to smooth out this smile. But so to answer your question, I've never made like an actual full 2D film or anything. I've just kind of dabbled in it. And all these characters were designed in 2D, So I did design these in Krita. Like if you look at some of my first live videos for these characters, I have live shows where I just drew everything in Krita, which is a free graphics program, and it's pretty good too. It's a good program, and you can do, if you want to, if you want to try and experiment with 2D animation, you can do it in Krita, and you do it in like layers, like with Photoshop, but instead of layers, it's kind of like flipping frames and having layers at the same time. So there's a transparency to the layers, like when you're flipping paper, like in a traditional sense. So I think a lot of 2D animators would probably really like that program. The only problem is that it's buggy. So if you use it, a lot of people will say it crashes and all that, Alright, so this one here, this face is going to be a frown, so I need to, maybe I can show you guys first a close-up. So here's the frown, and there's what I've got. So I need to remove the lips, smooth them out, and try to get the same expression. And by the way, what I'm doing here, these are twins. These are all twins. So there's going to be 3 of these characters, 3 babies, all wearing the same clothes, all with the same replacement faces. That way I can save on sculpting time and all that. It's just a lot simpler to do. But each one will have a slightly different hairstyle. So that's kind of how I'm getting around that. Because I'm only one person. I can't do... Yeah, I want to try to cut down on as much work as I can in order to tell the story, but still make it as a nice looking film. So it's not going to be like I'm cutting corners artistically, but I am trying to save time. So let's see. So Icepick says money is a tool. And Hoserloo says, like my powers, I use them for good. I mean, it's a good question, Janet. I just think, it's kind of depends. I don't know. I mean, if there's any negativity regarding that, I don't know. So Beard says, I think for many directors, being on set and managing things and having a hand in that is exciting, while others really, the minute frame by frame control of animation, and each director uses their medium's strengths in the composition. Yeah. Some people have a knack for things, like working with other people. Like they become directors. And I asked Mark Gustafson once, what is his trick to that? And he was just like, I just come in every day, and what happens, happens. He doesn't really... There were no tricks or anything involved. I think it's just like social skills. I think I like the way that eye got painted. Just a little bit too much paint there. Alright, once that dries, I can scrape the little nick off the bottom there easily. So I'm going to also paint in his mouth. There we go. So, if you're a real purist, of course, you could do all like what I'm doing here with clay, trying to paint the eyes and the mouth by taking a little piece of black clay and putting it in there. But it's not necessary. This is more accurate, and it's quicker. And it looks the same, it looks like there's clay in there. You couldn't really tell. Okay, this one, I want this eye to be slightly bigger. There we go. Okay, clean my brush. This. Yeah, I mean, I personally like to sculpt and I like to create characters, and I probably like set making second best, and animation is my least favorite aspect. Really, it depends. I mean, I like it in certain situations, other times I don't, but I think the animation aspect, you feel kind of tied down, like you can't really walk away, and when you have a lot of other people in your house, or cats and a kid, like my son is going to be 9 soon, but when there's a lot of activity and you can't really get away from that, sometimes that's what's distracting. I mean, you almost need to be like a hermit. Like I think Greg was saying, kind of had to be that way if you're going to be into stop motion. trying to fix this eyeball. So I scraped out a little bit of the bottom part. So I'm just gonna repaint that. The drop of paint. Oh man, this is so small. I messed up again. Alright. So, as you can see here, or maybe you can see it, the left eye is just a little bit strangely shaped. So, I'm going to scrape that again. Just that little corner. Maybe I can kind of push it a bit into shape. It's getting better. Bruce Bickford would really have no problem working on something this small. I don't know how he does it. Some of his characters are literally as big as just this little face. And he gets all the eyes and all the details perfect. Okay, that's not too bad there. Yeah, having a social life gets in the way of art, but sometimes it's necessary. If you ever get married, you'll have a social life, most likely. Parties, and if you have a kid, you can't just stay at home. You gotta take them out and bring them places, and then there's birthdays and everything else. Sometimes you have to push people away just to get your work done. Especially if you work at home like I do. I sometimes have to close myself in a room and tell myself, okay, I'm gonna sit here for however long and work, and anybody that needs me to do something, I need to tell them I can't help you. Can't help you right now. I'm working. On one hand, you have to. On the other hand, it's in a social sense, it's mean. It's like you have to say, I need to do my sculpting. If I don't do my sculpting, we don't eat. So let's see. Lee Hardcastle, yep. That guy's really famous. I mean, his work caters to a certain age group, which is, not too young, not too old, and it's rebellious. It's like a rebellious thing to watch, so it's fits into that age range where you're like a college student or whatever, and that's kind of what Robot Chicken does. They really stick to a certain theme because they know that the audience that's most into stop motion it's pretty much people in their early 20s to like mid 30s, I think. Oh, dropped the eyebrow. Okay, so I think making the eyebrows a little bit different than the other one, this one, making it slightly different. just by a little. Not going to worry about making it exactly the same because I don't want it to be sort of robotic, and if you make everything too symmetrical, it has a fakeness about it. So what I'm doing, I'm just kind of rolling out some clay. Not sure if you guys can see this before, but that's how I make a small snake. And this I'll just cut up to make our eyebrows. Let's see. The Quentin Tarantino of claymation. Yep. Alright, so cut up these eyebrows again. Hopefully, I won't drop this one. There's one. And one eyebrow. Oh, dropped it. This one's too big, so I need to cut this one just a little shorter. Oh. It's really microscopic. I can just get it to stick to my tool. All right. I think that will work. Okay. There it is. Oh, I see. So Janet was saying, I'm sometimes afraid to be an artist, not only animation, because I hear a lot of comments that artists are like a bitch. Oh, you mean like trolls? Like trolling you? I think I understand what you're saying. Yeah, there's people that will criticize your work on the internet. Absolutely. That's something that, I've been criticized. It doesn't really bother me. It shouldn't really bother you either. I mean, but people can be really harsh, can't they? They can be really mean on the internet. Alright, so now I've got these faces done, and I've got two other faces, but what was the plan with these here? What time is it now? I've got about 15 minutes. I can probably get one more face done. So I'm going to put these aside, and I'll show you guys all what we have so far, which is a lot of replacement faces. Man, it's going to be cool when I get all these done, because then I can start animating. I've already got the set done for this, which, like, some of the stuff I haven't shown you guys because I didn't create this during the live show. I did things offline. And what would be a good expression for this one here? Maybe I could just make a goofy smile for this one here. But yeah, criticism is, not a really big deal. I think when somebody has a bad day, they see something, they're just like, who cares? I'm going to say your work looks like garbage. And I think over time you realize that it's just You cannot please everybody, and if you try to please everybody, that would be bad. You'll be really let down if you try to do that. So this guy, this little kid here, I'm gonna give him a smile and maybe put like one tooth in his mouth so he looks kind of goofy, like a kid that has one tooth that grew in. Because one of the scenes in the film is where they're all standing around and they're playing with toys, and they're all presumably happy until the one kid starts to cry, and then they all cry. They're like, "Oh my God, something must be wrong." Because the one kid is hungry, and that's kind of the point. He's gonna cry for food. So I think this one, I'm gonna give him a big smile. Gonna give his mouth a lot of depth. Gonna really cut into it. Another thing I think I've mentioned previously is we want to make sure that all this stuff translates well on camera, and since this is a really small sculpt, we need to exaggerate things a little bit. So as you can see, even though this is far from the web camera, you can tell that he's definitely smiling. Make sure it's really cut into. And let me see, so he's gonna need a little bit of a more cheek on the sides, because when you're smiling, everything kind of moves up. I'm just gonna put a little piece of clay towards the side. If it will stick, there we go. And that will create just a little more shadow. So it doesn't look too flat. I don't want this to look like it's a 2D drawing, but his eyeballs, I'm just gonna give those a little bit of depth too. Just kind of cut it out slightly with my tool. I think these are the smallest heads I've ever made for clay animation. Okay. Next step is to get some more paint in there. And my paint is still not completely dried out, even though it was one drop. There's still some moisture in there, so I'm just dipping my paintbrush in alcohol, and that will kind of reconstitute it a little bit. And there we go. So it's not going to be too thick to paint in there. You never want to use paint that's really super thick, because it won't go in nice and smooth. It'll leave paint marks, paint lines, brush marks, whatever you call it. And that would be bad. You guys can kind of see it's really difficult to get all this detail. Paint the eyes. There we go. And once that dries, I'll put in a tooth, maybe in his upper lip, or under his upper lip, which is going to have to be really tiny. And I need to give him some eyebrows. Alright, let's see, get some clay. Still got one more face, one more kid's face, but I don't think I'll have time to finish that one. Alright, so there we have another snake of clay. Pancakes. Kind of looks like pancakes. I think I have a dust particle inside there. Even the dust particle is big enough to make it difficult to do this. Alright, now. Small little eyebrows. Oops. You see that? There's just like one. I'm not going to use that piece. Let's do another one here. It's this one. Cut it. So I need to round it just a little bit. Oh. There we go. That's one. Need to round this one a little. Okay. And this one's a tad bit too big, so I'm going to cut the end off. Ah, read your old comment. Hey Don, welcome. Yeah, ask Don Carlson about being trolled. Let's see. So Janet says, last time in Poland, some good artists became activists and support old bad politics because old politics gave them money when they rule, and people started to hate all artists. Well, if they hate all artists for that, that's a little silly. I'll use some alcohol here just to clean my fingers because they're getting clay on them. And if I touch my character, it's going to get on there. So I'll do that real quick. I'm just putting some alcohol on this paper towel and then just wiping my hands. Yeah, I mean, it's... Oh, pancake mines. Oh, okay. I thought you meant that these characters look like their heads are made out of pancakes or something, because they kind of do. I love pancake mines, so that's one of the funniest ones ever. But Janet, yeah, don't worry about that. Don't worry. I mean, just be yourself. Do what you want to do. If people don't like it, don't worry. You know, like I say, if you're trying to impress everybody else or to get along too much, then you won't feel like your life is fulfilled. You know, you need to kind of do what you want. And if being an artist is what you want to do, then don't let other people tell you what to do. You know, that's not nice. I mean, it's okay, like, to take advice from people that have your best interest at heart, but you gotta learn to make your own decisions, you know. And there's nothing wrong. I mean, look at what I'm doing, you know. And if I make a political statement or whatever, I'm actually making one with this film. I'm making a political statement just for people to come together and help each other out. You know, it's a really simple thing, but right now it's almost revolutionary. You know, to say that in some ways. At least in America, you know, people are really divided right now in our country. So now, the tooth. I need to make a tooth for this character. And I need to find a color that's good for that. And I think this gray is good for a tooth. I think this is the color I used for the teeth, actually. And, you know, thinking about it, well, let's make this tooth first. I think this is good. Put that in his mouth. Is it gonna stick? Come on, tooth. Get in there. Oh, it's so small. I need a smaller tool to put it in. Maybe this X-Acto blade. Why did I decide to make them this small again? There we go. That's kind of in there. Gonna push it in like that, and I want to cut the top off and make it flat. So I'm gonna slice it in half. Is that gonna work? Let's see. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try again. Hey, I like punk rock too. Yep. I like Henry Rollins. I think Rollins' band was really good. Yep. I used to listen to Megadeth. I've seen Metallica maybe 4 or 5 times in concert, and been to Ozfest, and I like all kinds of music. Alright, so now this little kid has a tooth. As you can all see. Super tiny. Again, I think I want to cut just to slice that top off nice and flat. But it's not working. Look at that. It sticks to my tool. Well, I cut it flat. Maybe I can just put it in there now with the X-Acto blade. Oh, come on, tooth. Man. It might take me another hour to get this in there the right way. But this is why you make replacements, right? Because if I try to do this during animation, I'd lose my place during animation for sure. Well, I wouldn't really. I mean, I'd have a frame grabber, but still. It'd make things more difficult. There we go. Well, let's move this tooth over. There we go. See if that can go in focus now. Oh. There is the tooth. Alright, so we got a tooth in there. Now, the question I have is, should I put a tooth in this replacement face? Because it's wide open, right? Maybe I should put just a tooth right in the top right corner. I think I'm going to do that. Just for consistency. Oh. Oh my god. Come on, tooth. Do what I want, please. Let's try again. So the reason why the tooth won't stick to the face is because the mouth is painted with acrylic paint, and it's kind of smooth, and it was water based, and water and oil don't mix very well. There we go. So I'm just going to shape it now that it's stuck on there. And voila. Okay. Alright, so here are the replacements that we've got for the kid's head. Like that. Got some up here. And we've got the mother replacement face. And all the other replacement faces. So hopefully within the next 2 live shows, we can finish up all of the mother's replacement faces. Though they should all be done. Unless I think of more than I need during some point. Oh. Alright, well, yep, Janet, that's a good idea, but maybe we can talk about that next week. So that does wrap up tonight's show. I'm going to try something. I'm going to try to... first, let me zoom out. Let's reset the camera. And let's see if I can get Alexa to...
Sorry, I didn't find TV.
I wasn't talking to you yet. Let me see here. Okay, let's see. Alexa, ask Good Vibe about end show.
Thanks everyone for stopping by. This concludes our live show. We broadcast every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central. If you liked this week's broadcast, give us a like, or subscribe to our channel for updates. Don't forget that every 5 weeks we have our popular stop-motion challenges, so don't delay. You can learn more at animateclay.com. See you next time, and happy animating!